This picture has been going around Twitter, and I won't lie, it definitely got me thinking, how strong was Regular Show actually? I haven't seen many YouTubers besides Goji really dive into Cartoon Network scaling like that and how wacky it can really get. So today I wanted to not only just talk about Mordecai and Rigby, rather I wanted to go over everything that Regular Show has to offer, so think of this as a composite Regular Show power scale. I'm mainly just going to be mentioning the show though, so if there are other medias that make them out reversal, I'm not going to be mentioning that today. With that being said, I think to start off, we can go over the main cast and some of their best feats. It should be noted that this is not me ranking the part crew, as they all seem to kind of scale to each other besides Skips and when Muscle Man is enraged. The writers obviously don't keep in mind of the power scaling represented throughout the show, and there are definitely a lot of inconsistencies. So we're just going to be picking and choosing some of the wackier feats. That way it just makes it a lot easier for me to talk about the best and funniest displays of physical power in the show, and give an overall estimation where the crew would generally scale to. Anyway, with that yapping out of the way, before we get into any anti-pops or universal stuff, let's start with the earlier seasons. In episode 4 of season 1, Rigby would learn Death Kwon Do in order to win at punchies so that he can be player 1. Of course, he goes mad with power, leading into even destroying Stone Fountain. Based on the crater that was made, we can say that this feat comes out to around multi-city block. The park crew, even without Death Kwon Do, survive punches from this Rigby, and we know Mordecai and even Benson would be capable of utilizing this same style later on. Speaking of Benson, in the episode titled Think Positive, we see Benson building up his anger towards Mordecai and Rigby, but holding it back so that he doesn't get fired. It gets so bad that Benson literally becomes a mini son from how much anger he's holding back. And once Pops would tell him to unleash his anger or he's fired, this would lead into one of the funniest moments in the whole show. Benson would shoot a flamethrower at both Mordecai and Rigby, which didn't really do that much damage to them. They're a bit scratched up, sure, but the main thing that Benson accomplished from this was making them deaf. This is pretty impressive because Benson in this episode was threatening to destroy the entire park, and then he focuses this same power onto Mordecai and Rigby. And based on the size of the park along with the crater that Benson made, it should come out to around town level. It's pretty consistent in Regular Show as well that they pretty much come out unscathed throughout these bizarre and big explosions that are shown throughout the show. Whether it's Party Pete, an orbital laser, or even borderline a nuclear bomb, these guys somehow come out standing and live to tell the tale. I know I'm mainly mentioning Mordecai and Rigby and Benson, but the scaling should be applicable to the whole crew, at least when regarding durability. But of course, Regular Show characters by themselves aren't known for their power, but rather their crazy gimmicks that allow them to take things to the next level. For example, the park crew fuse with the Baby Ducks on some Power Ranger shit, forming a park Megazord. While fighting for the Baby Ducks' rights, this fight gets so intense that they get half of the moon thrown at them and they survive pretty easily. In order for this guy to split the moon like this, he would have needed to exceed over 292 yotatons of TNT. For reference, this is well over 60 times the moon busting feat that Piccolo shows off in preparation for the Saiyan saga. So for those who are saying, could they solo Sukuna? Bro, they might just solo Raditz if I'm being honest. And what's funny is, at least in durability, this is very consistent since in the finale they survived the destruction of a whole planet. The finale in general, as you know, is what really makes Regular Show seem crazy since Anti-Pops is a threat to the entire universe, and Pops, while tapping into his powers, is able to fight him. And somehow Rigby and Mordecai survive a clash from these two, which again, their battle is threatening the entire universe. Now, granted, these guys do have erasure hacks, so this may be more of a resistance feat than a durability feat, but I think it is something to keep in mind if you want to scale them as high as possible. But the only one I can confidently say is universal plus is probably Pops when he's channeling his powers, and Anti-Pops himself. As far as the rest of the crew goes, their durability at the very worst is like city level, with depending on who stops by in the episode, they can even exceed those planetary ranges, which I'm not gonna lie, for Regular Show is very funny to think about. As far as speed goes, similarly in the durability / attack potency section, the feats range in different tiers. With the death jump, Mordecai was able to create sonic booms and fly at incredibly fast speeds. With access to the sugar donuts, we see that they are able to accelerate so fast everything around them moves in slow motion, which is kind of crazy since this is stuff you'd mainly see speedsters being capable of doing. But I think the best speed feat in the series is performed by one of the best side characters in the whole show, that being God of Basketball. He was able to jump from Earth to Jupiter within a couple of seconds. For reference, this would mean at least within 3 seconds, this man crossed 444 million miles. For him to do this, he'd have to have been moving at least over 300 times the speed of light. And not only do Mordecai and Rigby gain access to these powers, but also Muscle Man and High Five Ghost as well. And we see in Exit 9B, everyone is just kind of fighting each other, with the hammer being capable of tagging him. Whether you think Mordecai and Rigby are FTL with the rings or not doesn't really matter. The god of basketball should have access to his powers all the time, and yet the hammer still tags him. And really, this is the best speed scaling you're gonna get within the show. Besides, of course, Anti-Pops and Pops fighting throughout space, which we do see Rigby and Mordecai being capable of perceiving. So this would at least mean when taking a highballed version of the park crew, they are easily reaching those faster than light speeds. Wait a minute, why does the show have better light speed scaling than JJK? Anyway, I think we can now talk about the hack section of the video, which in my opinion is the most interesting part. Regular show is notorious for its wacky and stupid gimmicks, and luckily a lot of them are actually applicable in combat. In the very first episode, we see a piano called the Power that Rigby steals from a wizard. This piano allows him to warp reality itself and make things happen. I'm not joking.
A bunch of baby ducks, send them to the moon. Soda machine that doesn't work, send them to the...
This isn't even the only weapon that's capable of doing things like this as well, such as the Book of Park Records, allowing them to alter the history of the park, and literally create scenarios. So let's say Sakuna drops down on here, Benson could just write that Sakuna farts and explodes, and that's literally what happens. Abilities would set rules like Infinity or Hakai and some of your favorite broken techniques. Yeah, the Book of Park Records can handle that. The Realm of Darthon allows them to literally trap you in a Dungeons and Dragons game based on the rules that Mordecai and Rigby or whoever has the game set. As far as weapons they can use, they have the Fists of Justice, weapons that allow their user to beat up man babies, and of course the Galaxy Sword, which is probably the strongest weapon on the list physically. With this sword, yeah, they can wipe out galaxies. Anti-Pops and Pops have existence erasure as well, which we see Mordecai and Rigby withstand with ease. Which makes sense since even in earlier seasons, they were hit by antimatter and literally their molecules being altered and spun around, and they came out unscathed. Yes, this simp dweeb bird and dumbass raccoon can survive antimatter by season 1. It's safe to say that the regular show franchise, when you really sit and think about it, have shown off some really ridiculous levels of power. And these levels of power would bully a lot of your favorite characters. Dudes like Saitama, Naruto, and even versions of Goku get sunned by Pops. Rigby and Mordecai with Death Kwon Do would cook Sukuna, Benson can stop the Saiyans, and yes, Muscle Man can save the Soul Society.